we're doing the Tosfot here on Daf Ayin Aleph Amid Beis, Dibra Maskil Kala B'Chamura. So I've been spending a lot of time on this Tosfot, trying to figure it out. And I think stage one has to be an overview of the sugya in order to appreciate this Tosfot. Now, if you were students in my class, I would require of you to take out a pen and paper. Or if you want to do it in pencil, but I don't think that you could keep all these factors in mind without seeing it in front of you on a table, so to speak. Now, I don't know how to make tables so much, but what I can do is I can write summaries. Okay, then, so are you willing to take a minute time to get yourself a piece of paper and a pen and write this down? I'm going to dictate. And again, it sounds like I'm treating you like children, but trust me, it's almost impossible to do this and go through this Tosfot without seeing, all the variables in front of you, all the cases and all the scenarios. So we'll start with, I guess you could call it Roman numeral number 1, if you want, if that helps. And I wrote Ben Noach Shebirech es Hashem V'nisgayim. Let me repeat that. Ben Noach Shebirech es Hashem V'nisgayim. That's Roman numeral number 1. Now, what is the din as a Ben Noach, and what is the din as a ger? So what I wrote on my page is Sayif, and I wrote the word Sayif underneath the words Ben Noach. So you have a line underneath Ben Noach and it says Sayif. And underneath the word Nisgayer, I have the word Skila. That's number 1. So we went from from Sayif to Skila. So again, as a guy, for Birchas Hashem, which is Makalel, right? He's Chayev Sayif. But as a ger, as a Jew, he's Chayev Skila. Now, underneath the word Sayif, maybe you want to draw a line or an arrow, Kal. Underneath Skila, Chamur. So his, his punishment for the criminal act as it was implemented in real time, in real life, meaning as a Ben Noach, he would have gotten off easy with Sayif. Now he's a ger. And we cannot impose upon him the punishment that he would have gotten without the gerus as a Ben Noach, because of what's called Nishtana Dino. Nishtana Dino means that the Chiyuv Sayif as a Ben Noach was generated without 2 witnesses. 1 witness was enough. Without a court of 23 judges, just 1 judge is enough. Without a Hasra, a Ben Noach doesn't require the Hasra. So now that he's a ger, we would have to impose upon him a chiyuv of nishtana dino, and we cannot do so. We'll soon see the exception to that case in a minute. Because how could you judge him now based on those meager, lenient requirements of din that would have applied to him as a ben noach at the time that he incurred the criminal action? However, and now we go to Roman numeral number 2, we have a case of a ben noach shehika, and the word hika is synonymous with rotzach es Yisrael. So a guy killed a Yisrael. Now this is a case of nishtana dino, but lo nishtana misaso. Why? Because as a ben noach, we would have condemned him for sayiv, and even after his gerus, if a Jew kills a Jew, he gets sayiv. So the same misa apply, whether he is judged as a ben noach based on the time that he committed the crime, or he would be judged today as a Yisrael. In both cases, he gets the same identical misa, which is called sayiv. So in that case, the Brisa says that he's going to be chayiv sayiv, because no matter how you slice the cake, he's chayiv sayiv. So that's called lo nishtana misaso. Now, all the above, maybe I should have put this on the top, is Rabbi Chanina. And now we get to a brisa, which is going to be contradictory to Rabbi Chanina. What's the brisa? This is Roman numeral number 3. A ben noach sheba al eshes ish Yisrael. You want to write that down. Number 3. Ben noach sheba al eshes ish Yisrael. The brisa says that he's chayav chenek. Okay. So now under ben noach, you write sayiv. And under li'achar shenis gayer, you write chenek. Under sayiv, you write chamur. And under chenek, you write kal. I'm going to go over that again because this is critical. If a ben noach has a relationship with an eshes ish Yisrael, then he will be judged, he will be condemned for sayiv. Now, when we compared sayiv to skila in the case of Birach Hashem, we said that sayiv was kal. But now we're going to compare sayiv to chenek. Why? Because a Yisrael who has a relationship with an eshes ish is chayav chenek. And if you draw the line down from sayiv, another line down for chenek, sayiv is chamur and chenek is kal. So now we have a case of nishtana, both dino and misaso. And according to Rabbi Chanina, the Gemara thinks he should be patur. But the Brisa says he's chayiv chenek. which means we judge him as if he committed this adulterous relationship as he is now, as a ger. According to Rabbi Chanina, he should be potter because it's both nishtana misoso and nishtana dino, which in Rabbi Chanina's paradigmic case, which was Roman numeral number 1, of a Benoach Shabir Hashem and his Gayer, where the Misa changed, so it was both Nishtana Dino and Nishtana Misaso. Rabbi Chanina says he's potter, he's off the hook. So in the case of Benoach Shabal Eishes Ish Yisrael, he should be off the hook because it's not only Nishtana Dino, but it's also Nishtana Misaso. As a Benoach, he'd be Chayav Sayev, and as a Yisrael, he's Chayav Chenet. So the Gemara answers, quote, Kala b'chamura meshech shaycha. That's really a major issue for today. Okay, so you want to write these words down, and this is the defense of Rabbi Chanina from the Brisa, from the attack from the Brisa. Kala b'chamura meshech shaycha. Let's interpret those words according to Rashi and according to Tosfot's Havamim. What we're saying is that essentially, lo nishtana misasa. What does that mean, lo nishtana misasa? As a Benoach, he was chayav sayev. As a Yisrael, he's chayav chenek. How could you say that that's lo nishtana misasa, two different misas? But the answer is that the original misa, the onesh that would have applied as a ben Noach, which is called sayev, includes within it a chiyuv chenek. Right? Like you're familiar with the phrase yesh b'chal masayim mana, 200 includes 100. So that since the punishment of sayev is chenek plus, it's even beyond chenek. So therefore, it's like lo nishtana misaso, because the misa of chenek is inherent in the misa of sayev, and that's called in the Lashon HaGemara kala b'chamura meshech shaycha. That we look at the kala, the misa kala, which in this case is chenek, and it's b'chamura in the more chomer misa of sayev, it's meshech shaycha. It's as if chenek was included in the misa of sayev. Okay. Now we go on to Roman numeral number 4. And this is called in the language of the Gemara, Lema Misayele. We're going to quote a Brisa to support Rabbi Chanina. Okay. Now this Lema Misayele needs an introduction, which I'm not expecting you to write down. So we're going to get to Roman numeral number 4 on our chart in just a minute. And what we're going to say is the following. let me just clarify for a second. Oh, we're going to say the following. In cases, Roman numeral number 1, 2, and 3, we have Nishtane Dino. We may have had Nishtana Misoso, except in the case of the murder case. There we had Saif and Saif, so it wasn't Nishtana Misoso. And therefore, we don't apply the principle of Rabbi Chanina to pater him up, because Nimanav Shachis Chayiv Saif. But if we focus on cases 1 and 3, where there's Nishtane Dino, then whether or not we will pater him up would depend upon whether we can apply the principle of Kala B'Chamura Meshach Shaycha or we cannot. So, for example, in the first case, Roman numeral number 1, we cannot apply the principle of Kala B'Chamura Meshach Shaycha, because as a Ben Noach, he would be Chayiv Skila. But since it's Nishtane Dino, we cannot impose that Chiyuv of Skila, because now his din is that of a Ben Yisrael. But on the other hand, we cannot apply the Misa Kala. Sorry. We cannot apply the Misa Chamura of Skila, because when he perpetrated the crime, he would only be Chayav Sayed, which is Kala. So according to Reb Chanina, in the case of Ben Noach Shabirach Hashem V'Nizkai, where we have both Nishtane Dino and Nishtane Misaso, Mimadavshach, we can't impose any chiyuv on him. We would have applied the lighter punishment of Sayyid, because that's when he perpetrated the crime as a Ben Noach. But we can't do so because of Nishtane Dino. On the other hand, we can't apply the Misa of Skila based on his current status as a Ben Yisrael, because then we're going to be more machmir on him than the perpetration of the crime, the moment that he actually perpetrated the crime as a Ben Noach. Now, in the case of Ben Noach Shabal Eshes Ish Yisrael, which was Roman numeral number 3, where it was both Nishtane Dino and Nishtane Misaso, so fundamentally we should go back to the moment that he perpetrated the crime but because of Nishtane Dino, we can't be machmir on him today and impose the more chamor Misa Chamur of Sayyid, unless we can make it into Lo Nishtane Dino. And how do we achieve that goal of Lo Nishtane Dino? The Gemara Lechatchilu didn't understand that. The Gemara answers Kala b'chamura meshech shaycha. Which seems to mean that we go back to the original moment where he perpetrated the crime. But Nishtana Dino means we can't impose that Misa Chamura of Sayif, but we can give him Chenek, which is Kal, because in that sense we Marafsha, no matter how you slice the cake. If we're dealing and judging him from his original moment of the crime, so he would get chenek, so to speak. He gets sayif, but sayif includes chenek. And if we're going to judge him based on Nishtana Dino on his current status as a Yisrael, having perpetrated that crime, he would be chayv chenek. So in a sense, we're making it into lo Nishtana misoso, as we discussed before. So Nishtana Dino is a barrier preventing us from imposing the punishment of now as Israel, because at the time he perpetrated the crime, there was a whole different system of dinim. But it seems that we could apply the punishment of today if that punishment would have been identical as a Ben Noach when he perpetrated the crime. So in the case of Ben Noach, Shabir Echas Hashem V'Nizgayer, that's the first Roman numeral number 1, there, since it's Nishtana Dino, we cannot apply the punishment that he would have gotten when he perpetrated the crime, because today he has a different set of dinim. And now, could we punish him with the Misa that would have applied now? And that we can't do because of Nishtana Misasa. So we're stuck in a bind. We're between a rock and a hard place. To judge him as if he were Ben Noach, we can't do because Nishtana Dino. And to judge him as a Ben Yisrael, we can't do after Gerus because of Nishtana Misasa. The exception to that rule is the case of Ben Noach Shabal Eishes Ish Yisrael, where we can, again, we cannot apply the original Misa because it's the Nishtana Dino, and now he's a Ben Yisrael after Gerus. But we can apply the Misa of a Ben Yisrael because it's lo nishtana misasam. So nishtana dino means we cannot impose the original misa. So again, it seems, just 1 second, I'm just trying to figure this out. Once again, there's one point here that I have to clear up in my brain. We cannot apply the original Misa because of Mishtana Dino. We have to apply this Misa because it's Mishtana Misasa. Skewer. Let me say this. We cannot apply the original Misa because of the Shtana Misasa. No, but that's not like before we said we cannot give them the original Misa because the Shtana Dino. See, that's the point that I think I'm making a mistake about. Again, let's go. Ben Noach Shabirach Hashem in his Gayer. So why can't we give him? Why can't we give him skila? We can't give him skila because he perpetrated the crime as a ben Noach, which would only incur a chiv sayed, not skila. We cannot condemn him now as a ger, as a Yisrael, if by doing so we're going to impose upon him a more severe punishment, a more severe misa, than he would have incurred when he committed the crime, namely as a ben Noach. So when the misa changes from ben Noach to Yisrael, then what are we going to do? We can impose the chiyuv of a Yisrael if we're not extending beyond the chiyuv of ben Noach at the moment that he perpetrated the crime. But here in the case of a ben Noach Shabir Hashem v'Yisgayer, says Rabbi Chanina, by imposing the chiyuv misa of now, you have exceeded beyond the original Maisa HaMachayef, the original Maisa of Bireches Hashem, which would only incur a lighter chiyuv of sayif, and now you want to be machmir as if he had implemented it now with a chiyuv skila, which is more chamor. But in a case where the opposite is true, and the change in the misa goes not lechumra but lekula, then we could impose the chiyuv of now lekula. You see what are you with me? I'm struggling with the following question. Fundamentally, do we want to judge him today as we would yesterday when he perpetrated the crime? Or do we want to fundamentally punish him as if he had committed the crime today after Geirus? So I'm going to take the following position, and we'll see whether it's right or not. That fundamentally we could condemn him as if he did the crime today, but on condition that we're not exceeding beyond the punishment he would have gotten. It's like a technical foul, if you follow what I mean. Like you stepped out of bounds, so you put your foot over the line. We are bound by, again, we want to impose the misa of today, but we're bound and restricted because we cannot exceed beyond the misa that he would have incurred at the time that he perpetrated the crime. So in the case where his misa as a ger is more chamur, then there's a barrier that prevents us from giving him the punishment of today. So you'll ask me, well, give him the lighter punishment of yesterday, of the time that he perpetrated the crime. There also we have a technical barrier, and that's called nishtane dino. And today we can't judge him and condemn him based on the leniencies of Eid Echad and Lo Asra and Shofet Echad, Dayan Echad, etc., etc. So that's where Reb Chanina says you're left nowhere. You've got a technical restriction in both directions. But it would seem, that's how I want to investigate with you, that if we don't have nishtane dino, if we don't have nishtane dino, it just doesn't work out. Thought I had it. Again, we can't impose the punishment now because it's more chomer. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Could we impose upon him the punishment of now if that punishment is not more chomer than the time that he perpetrated the crime? So let's say, for example, a Yisrael Shabal Eishasish would get Chenek, a Benor Shabal Eishasish would get Sayif. Let's impose the Misa of Chenek as he would be judged and condemned now, because that's not more mach, then you're not stuck against that barrier. That how can you punish him now in a more severe way than you would have at the time that he perpetrated the crime? But the answer is, at the time that he perpetrated the crime, he would be chayv a more chomer dikabis of sight. Now we're only imposing upon him, Roman number 3, a chiv of chenek. So that's a lower punishment. It's a misa kala in relationship to sayif, which is a misa chamura. So we'll give him the punishment that he would get now. The only problem is it's nishtana dino. So how do we overcome that problem? Nishtana dino, because we said that nishtana dino was the barrier for imposing upon him the chiyuv had he perpetrated the crime now. Nishtana Dino would tell me we go back to the original moment when he perpetrated the crime. But now we're saying no, just the opposite, that in Nishtana Visasa, we can give her the visa that it be chayiv now, as long as it doesn't exceed in its severity the visa that he would have been chayiv then. But we just finished saying that Nishtana Dino means that we can't give him the visa that he would be chayiv then because he has a whole new set of dinim. How can we judge him now based on those dinim of then? And that's why Rabbi Chanina said in the case of Ben Noach, Shabirachas Hashem and his Gayer, we cannot impose upon him the chiyuv of Sayif because of Nishtana Dino. I don't have a solution to this problem. Once again, in Ben Shabal Eishis Yisrael, we're going to give him chenek. But what happened to Nishtana Dino? Nishtana Dino tells me that what we can no longer give him sight. Now, what was the barrier of giving him the punishment of now as if he had implemented the crime as Israel? We can't be more machmir than we would if he was a god. But in this case, by giving him chenek, we're okay. So now we're saying that we could give him the lower punishment as if he had done it now, because we don't have a barrier here of giving him a more severe punishment. So the path is clear to give him the punishment that he'd be chayiv now. So why can't we give him we can't give him skila in the case of Ben Noach Shabir Session. We can't give him skila because that is more chamor than what? Right, so we can't judge him now for the more chamor punishment of then. And why can't we give him the more kal punishment, as we did in the case of Ben Noach Shabal Eishes Ish Yisrael? We're going to put him to death with chenek. Why can't we, in the Ben Noach case, why, of Birech Hashem case, why can't we put him to death with sayed? So that's where I get stuck. In comparing Roman numeral number 1 to Roman numeral number 3, I find myself in a conflict, in a contradiction. Because if in Roman numeral number 3, we were able to punish him with chenek after his gerus, then why can't we punish him with sayif in the case of number 1 of Ben Noach Shabir Echas Hashem and his Gaia? We can't give him sayif. We explained that you can't give him sayif because his din changed. Why in the case of Baal Ish Yisrael, we're going to give him chenek if his din changed. 1 second. Maybe I'm confusing apples and oranges here. In the case of Ben Noach Shabir Hashem, we can't give him sayif. Because what? Because his din changed. We can no longer, there we don't want to give him the original punishment of sayif because his din changed.
Well, it's not only did it change, but it's chal, right?
Meaning what? It could have been chal if, let's say, there was a gemar din for sayif. I'm assuming there was no gemar din for sayif. You can check me out on that and see if I'm right. But why can't we impose the chiyuv vis of sayif here? So we said because today he's a Yisrael and his din changed, so we can't impose upon him a gemar din based on the standards, the lower standards and requirements of a Ben Noach. We can't give him the more severe punishment as if he had perpetrated the crime as a ger, because he doesn't deserve that punishment. He implemented the crime as a Ben Noach, so it would only be chayiv sayif. So why not give him sayif? So we said because the standards for condemning him for sayif as a Ben Noach no longer exist. So that's where Rabbi Chanina came up with the Mimanav Shach, and it falls between two possible categories. But now I'm comparing it to the case number 3, Ben Noach Shabal Eishes Ish Yisrael. And it seems like we will impose the punishment of a ger, meaning of a Yisrael, and give him chenek, because again, we're not exceeding beyond the punishment that he would have gotten when he perpetrated the crime, which was sayif. On the contrary, we're being more lenient. But I still don't understand how we can condemn him to chenek when nishtana dino, when we don't have the evidence. That's where I get lost. I mean, we wanted to say that kala b'chamura meshach shaycha means we're not giving him chenek as if he was Yisrael who perpetrated this adulterous crime, but rather we're giving him sayif because included in sayif was chenek. You remember that discussion. But we're not saying that anymore. What we're saying now is that we can put him to death with chenek because as Yisrael, he'd be chayiv chenek. And why do I emphasize that? Because of the next case, which is Roman numeral number 4, which I guess we'll pick up tomorrow, Leim Messiah, and that's the case of Yisrael Shabal Nara Murasa. And then she became a Bogeres, and we're going to give her the punishment of chenek, which is the lesser punishment, and we're going to judge her as if she were a Bogeres now, and we would implement that punishment because we don't have Nishtana Dino. And if we don't have Nishtana Dino, then we go back to the later punishment, as if she had committed the crime today, after the Bagis. Well, I think we made some progress. I need another couple of hours to work on this. So Blinetta, we'll try to pick this up again tomorrow. But you have the chart? I mean, were you able to write it out? Okay, thank you so much. Because again, we keep coming back to all these cases and comparing them. Have a great day.